Those who rarely fall sick, what's the secret? Story 1. I'm an RN working in a hospital, and I'm going to go against some of the advice here to basically never go out. In absence of a pandemic, go out, live life, enjoy the company of others, etc. But wash your damn hands. Keep sanitizer with you and hit it anytime you think of it or touch something public. If somebody around you has respiratory symptoms, don a mask. Try not to touch your face too much. Stay up to date on your vaccinations. Find ways to reduce chronic stress in your life. Get enough sleep. Disease prevention is rarely complicated. It mostly just requires good habits. Ultimately, it's just the same common sense stuff the CDC has been recommending for decades. I'm around sick people 3 days a week and rarely get sick, mostly because of strict use of PPE when necessary and consistent hand hygiene. If you have kids, you are kind of screwed though. Story 2. I work in healthcare and haven't contracted a sickness from work since COVID happened. I wear a surgical mask at work every day and I don't eat lunch with coworkers. I wash my hands and use hand sanitizer whenever I'm going to interact with my face or other orifices. Outside of work, I rarely get sick even when my family is sick, but it's harder to be vigilant all the time at home. One of the lessons I've learned is that masks, even simple surgical ones, not N95, are highly effective against just about everything if you wear them properly on your face. It won't help you if it's not actually standing between your mouth and nose and the world. So many people do a job of fitting it and then whine, masks don't work. Yes, they do. They're just cosplaying and not actually wearing it. Another thing I've learned through experience is that most illnesses are much harder to transmit airborne than you think. People practically have to cough directly in your face most of the time to get you sick. You're most likely picking it up and feeding it to yourself. You interact with your face way more than you think you do, and keeping your hands clean goes a long way to preventing illness. The reason I wear a mask is partially to reduce odds of me breathing in a pathogen, but more so it's a mental check to make sure I don't absent-mindedly touch my mouth or nose with my hands. Story 3. I've always had a pretty good immune system. As kids, we were exposed to all sorts, always out playing in the dirt, and we always had multiple pets. Still have pets and play outside in the dirt, though now for money. I'm also outside a lot for work and interacting with lots of different people. Good diet, exercise, usual stuff really. Story 4. I work in healthcare and my coworkers are always sick, and I rarely am. I got my flu shot this year. And while they say it's not 100% effective, I'm one of the few who hasn't caught the flu this year. I also wear an N95 mask when there is an illness going around the facility. Lifestyle choices would be that I exercise every day, I eat a lot of fruits and veggies, and get plenty of sleep. Story 5. Use a respirator mask with a proper seal when indoors or in crowds. Understand that the immune system is in fact not a muscle that requires training. That would be like wanting to train your stomach by eating grass and tree bark. Getting sick all the time only makes you worse off in the long run, so filter the air you breathe and enjoy dependable great health as a result. Story 6. Grow up in a world where hand sanitizers and antibacterial soap aren't common, play outside in the dirt as a kid, spend time in groups of kids instead of online, and up your exposure to germs when younger. Basically, training camp for your immune system. Story 7. Take common sense public health precautions. PPE. Wear an N95. N95 mask while out and about. Seek ventilation and avoid crowded areas. Use a HEPA air filter. Keep your shots up to date. Wash your hands, especially before eating. Avoid smoking. Practice food safety. Pay attention to recalls. Don't eat leftovers over 4 days old. Put leftovers in fridge as soon as possible. Don't cross-contaminate when cooking. Only eat from your own plate and drink from your own cup. Trained immunity is a thing, but so is post-viral syndrome, inflammation, weakening of the immune system. You don't have to overdo it with disinfecting everything all the time, etc., but pay attention to pandemics, specific illness that are circulating, and take the recommended mitigations from health authorities. Before public health and modern medicine, people were just constantly exposed to illness. Some developed some immunity, most died. Sleep, diet, exercise, and chill out. Story 8. I've learned that sickness starts from the sinus. Colds and boogies, we touch our eyes and it flows into our sinus. We touch our nose and same thing. Throat and stomach is a little different. Stomach bugs and coughs. I flush my sinus with saline water to stop it from keeping any germs and regenerate by new sinus. My throat, it's because I lacked the flushing of the sinus, so now I gotta gargle saline water. My stomach, hard to say, but if I'm sick, I just drink water. At that point, the body is gonna do its thing and it'll eventually come out. Body is a beautiful thing. As I grow older, I ask myself more questions about it, because how do we even come to be? We are made perfect. Skin meshed with hard nail and skin meshed with soft hair that's fluffy and warm. Mind, lol. Story 9. Good hygiene. Face mask in enclosed areas like trains or buses. Consider your subconscious habits like touching your nose or mouth. Wash your hands before you eat anything or when you arrive home. Crack a window whenever possible. Simple stuff, really. Story 10. Being an introvert and not having kids, I'm also disabled, which limits my ability to leave the house. However, when I do, I mask up in crowded spaces, dock offices, and when I ride an Uber. I sadly got COVID back in 2023, however, as my SO brought it home. Otherwise, years of being an introvert since I was a teen, now in my 40s, has kept me safe unless I was working in a daycare center. Damn bronchitis and walking pneumonia, every single time. Story 11. I wear shorts year-round, sleep with the windows open in the winter, Colorado resident. Eat food that falls on the floor, eat local honey, don't use antibacterial soap, and avoid elementary school-age snot silo children. Sleep 6+ hours daily and ride or walk as much as possible. This plan has worked for 50+ years. Story 12. I can't help but laugh at the people that say exercise and good diet. I mean, sure, maybe that does help a little. That's not even close to the best thing you can do to not get sick. Washing your hands correctly is one of, if not the best things you can do. If you can, stay away from a big group of people this time of year. Disinfect your phone. Try to avoid touching your face a lot. Vaccinations are good. They don't always work, unfortunately. Story 13. Was a scrawny kid due to food access and work, but I generally don't worry about germs. I grew up on a farm, and I probably get a cold worse than a stuffy nose once every 2 years or more. Never had a noticeable bout with COVID. Neither have my kids, so maybe it's genetic. Start by only washing your hands when necessary, like after using the bathroom. I'm not a savage. Eat lots of raw and undercooked veggies and get a dog. Story 14. I always heard having a lot of pets help build your immune system. We had dogs, cats, a lizard, a bird, guinea pigs, fish, goats, chickens, turtles, a rabbit. Maybe I'm forgetting some. Some horses were across the road. My family never got seriously ill. My brother, sister, and I have never had the flu. We're 28, 31, and 32. I'm inclined to believe the pets theory. I never had COVID either, a fake. But I was also a massive drunk at the time, so if I had it, I was probably too drunk to know, or I was burning it out in my system with the alcohol. Story 15. Have good genetics and a strong microbiome, I think. I have kids, I have dogs. I never use antibacterial anything. I eat food off the floor and don't wash my hands a lot and get dirty in the garden and work out at a sweaty gym with other people, go out in public. I haven't taken antibiotics in decades, but in a house full of sick people, I won't get sick 95% of the time. My ex-husband said he got sick less when we lived together than at any other time in his life. My 11-year-old daughter is like me, while my 8-year-old Aeon picks up all kinds of things. I truly think our microbiome plays a huge role in our health that we don't yet understand. Story 16. It starts when you're a kid. Old school farm kids like me don't get sick often, even when those in the house do. I've read it has to do with being subjected to barn dust, animal buildings, grain dust, and probably picking and eating vegetables from the garden without washing them. We played outside and in farm buildings building our immune system, and Mom fed us like we were being fattened for market. I used to eat everything my mom made every meal. There were no leftovers, but didn't eat much sweets, other than ice cream. The Swan Man left us a 3-gallon container every 2 weeks. Story 17. Everyone's saying don't have kids. But as a teacher, I've definitely built up an immunity to so many things just from kids coughing and sneezing directly into my face. The last time I was so sick I called out of work was 2022. Obviously, I'm very careful about washing my hands. I have some decent genetics. I drink lots of water and go to bed before 11 every night, but I really think it is the exposure to every disease that commonly hits kids doing the heavy lifting here. Story 18. Making sure you ate enough dirt and enough snacks you saw lying there on the floor when you were a kid. I get sick less than once per year, and I'm 100% sure it's because I literally used to pick up chips I'd find on the floor and eat them when I was like 6. And it's not my hygiene. I used to shower every 4 days a couple years back, and it was the same. Story 19. I used to get sick a lot. Ever since I started masking in public places, I don't anymore. It took until 9/2023 to catch COVID, and aside from that, I've had 2 very minor colds since 2020. I'm a caregiver for a toddler, and when he gets sick, I mask when I'm with him. I also wash my hands thoroughly and frequently and avoid touching my face unless my hands are clean. Story 20. A lot of people don't realize how important the colon can be to your health. Your colon helps flush out toxins from your body, and when the colon isn't functioning optimally, your body starts seeking out alternative ways to flush out toxins from your body. If the colon is not working properly, your skin will start to release the toxins, and it will put stress on your body. This is why it's super important to keep well hydrated and try to keep your diet as healthy as possible. Story 21. I've only been sick the following times. Flu for 2 weeks in winter 08, bad cold October 19th, symptom-free COVID July 24, and a 3-day headache from the recent crud going around. I drink lots of water, rest well, wash my hands, don't touch my face, and use hand sanitizer. It's been this way for over a decade and has worked well. The last 2 times I've been sick is due to the existence of a wonderful 18-month-old daughter. She's awesome, but loves to get me sick. Story 22. I was sick for years during my mid-late 30s, mostly due to stress, depression, drinking, smoking, and processed food. I learned some hard lessons from that, and I've been healthy and rarely sick for several years now. Eat real food. Avoid processed food. Sleep as much as you need. Remove yourself from stressful situations. Keep your workload reasonable. Exercise. Have good relationships with people and have a positive, practical outlook on life. Don't smoke. Don't drink much. Remove toxic people from your life. Use boundaries to keep your peace. Learn to forgive. Story 23. Playing in the dirt, sunshine, and fresh air, low stress, not obsessively washing hands, airing out your home frequently and changing HVAC filters. I have 2 little kids and they get sick maybe once a year, but also genetics are probably the most important. I've never had the flu, and neither have my children. My mom gets sick maybe once a year, and I don't remember my dad ever being sick. Story 24. A lot of science is now pointing towards people getting sick more because they are living indoors so much. By not being outside and working around dirt, animals, and plants, we do not pick up as many healthy bacteria and other microbes. Having a diverse microbiome inside and on our bodies actually is one of our first lines of immunity. B, our buildings are becoming tighter and tighter, allowing less and less outdoor air in, and trapping many of the bad bacteria and viruses in the places we spend the most time. C, we are cleaning ourselves and our environments far more than we need to, thus killing most good bacteria and leaving behind the stronger, more resistant organisms that are often the ones that are harmful. Normally we think that bacteria and other microbes are bad for us, when it is really just the opposite. I'm around 50 now, and I've had a very strong constitution my whole life. However, I believe that a lot had to do with being born naturally, not by C-section, being breastfed, living in a small farming community, and playing outside a lot when young. All those things probably provided a very robust microbiome. One final word. I've worked in the environmental health services for over 20 years now and have visited several thousand homes in those years. When people complain to me of not feeling well, when in their homes, these are some of the non-environmental threads I see. High stress levels, fearful mindsets, chaotic lifestyle, disorganization in the home, poor diet, and often evidence of being dependent on one or more substances or habits. These commonalities lead me to believe that healthy thinking is also a key component to staying healthy. When you're pushing your body all the time, it begins struggling to just keep you healthy. These are just some of my personal opinions based on years of working with sick people, continuing education classes, reading books, and personal experience. Story 25. It's not that I don't get sick, I just get so superficially. If my wife gets the flu with everything you image it is and is bedridden for a week, I get a slightly rough throat and a muscle ache here and there for a day or 2. Same with COVID. Got massive throat ache and muscle ache and was in a rougher shape than I have been for the past decade, hangovers notwithstanding, but was fine under 48 hours later. Still sat out the mandatory quarantine period for the full 7 days though. No clue why that is because I have a mediocre diet, barely get enough exercise, and sleep less than 7 hours regularly. Story 26. I teach elementary school and I manage to stay healthy. I wash my hands about 3 times during the school day. Of course, after every bathroom use, but before lunch, and I try not to touch a lot of things that I know the kids are slobbering all over. In addition, I make sure to eat a variety of foods with vitamins and minerals. I don't just eat junk. I think that helps. And lastly, if I see somebody who is sneezing, coughing, or being sick, I do not go near them. If a teacher is sick in a different room, I don't go talk to them. If a kid is hacking and coughing, he's at the end of the line. Simple as that. Story 27. I've eaten very healthily all my life. Combine that with a healthy immune system to begin with, and it means that if I get sick 2 or more times in a year for anything, that's a bad year. Most of the time I go for a couple of years without being sick. The last time I was really sick was in 2009 when swine flu was going around and I worked in a call center. I think also my generally positive outlook on life helps as well. We know an optimistic personality contributes to lengthening life by several years, and I suspect that part of this is a strengthening of the immune system. Story 28. Eat balanced, exercise, get fresh air, and sleep well. Also, I am a firm believer of tidying and spot cleaning, but not disinfecting, barring raw chicken juice on the counter or toilet bowl, for instance. Being exposed to environmental germs, Not letting a sick preschooler cough in your eye, but like petting your dog. Then not washing your hands, for instance, can help build the immune system. Story 29, I've been a vegetarian for 20 plus years. I think that helps. Little processed food, I cook 90% of meals from scratch. I stopped drinking alcohol a few years ago and I don't smoke. I also take a bunch of different vitamins. I also hate people, so I only go to work and store if needed. I have 3 kids, so they bring all kinds of from school, but it rarely affects me. Story 30, the more you're around people and use good personal hygiene, the less sick you'll be. I travel 2 weeks a month in airports and around strangers all the time. I literally cannot recall the last time I was sick enough to stay home from work. Through general observation and anecdotally, people I know who get sick more frequently tend to be smokers, are more socially isolated and/or have younger children. Story 31. Sorry for the spelling. Do some workouts, eat different meals and not just junk food. Have good hygiene, but don't be one of those who are afraid of germs and everything. Also, don't take the medicine for every little thing because this will make your body more weak and will be adjusted to the medicine instead fighting it by itself. Also, let kids be kids. Let them roll in the mud, fall, and all the other stuff that are the part of the childhood. In the end, these are all stuff that we were doing. I was doing it and I'm working out, trying to eat healthy. Okay, this is kind of harder since all food in the stores and everywhere have many chemicals. Only thing I have the problem with is the stress, and oh boy, is one hell of the thing to control. And it's probably one of the biggest reasons people get sick. I mean, I got epilepsy from too much stress, so I felt it on myself. But stress is definitely the hardest thing to control. It's not impossible, but it's hard, especially today. Story 32. IDK, even when I do get sick, it's a fraction of others. My wife gets a cold from the kids and is down for the count for 4 days. I wake up with similar symptoms shortly after and I'm back on my feet within a day. My older brother had every surface bottle, binky, steam cleaned and spotless, and he was relentlessly sick as a kid. When I was born, my parents would see a binky hit the floor, make sure there wasn't anything on it with a wipe on the shirt, and it was back in the mouth. I've always been rarely sick. I don't know if it's anecdotal evidence, but my advice would be not to be afraid to expose yourself to germs, within reason, of course. Wash your hands. Do the normal amount of cleanliness you should be doing, but don't be afraid to abide by the 5-second rule, lol. My family is never sick, and I think about this all the time. BC, it kind of weirds me out, TBH. My son is 7 and hasn't had a fever in 4 years. We did have a random isolated barf about 2 years ago that we kept him from school for, but he seemed fine. I get sick like once every 5-ish years. Most recently, I got the flu for the first time in my life in 2020. My husband gets sick the most, maybe once a year, which still seems far less than most parents. There's a bunch of common illnesses neither me, not my son have ever had. Ear infections, tonsillitis, bronchitis, etc. None of us get colds like ever. Last time I had a cold was when I was pregnant. I don't think it's genetics, BC. My mom and my sister and her kids are always sick. My dad not as much, but I also don't talk to him as often. So maybe I just don't hear about. We live relatively healthy lifestyles, but not like that healthy. We don't like take supplements, and my son just ate a peanut butter cup from breakfast, so I will say I'm a big advocate of sleep and physical rest, so maybe that's it. I am also super lax about hand washing and germs. Yes, after using the bathrooms or handling raw meat, but not really beyond that. IDK, I'm not trying to brag, BC. I have no idea what I'm doing right, LOL. Story 33, grew up outside, in the mud, the dirt, everywhere. Now I'm older and I do nothing to avoid sickness. Only wore a mask during COVID when I was forced to. Don't avoid door handles and railings, because apparently that's a thing now, LOL. And constantly eat leftovers that's been left outside, not in a fridge, for 2 or 3 days. Everything is due is setting KE up for getting sick. Yet the last time I had so much as a common cold was maybe 2 years ago. And the flu, never had it. So IDK, what the secret is really, but I believe it's limiting your cleanliness when growing up to induce some kind of natural immunity or something. Be a filthy child and your body will naturally adapt or something. Story 34. Wash my hands frequently with soap and water. I also clean high traffic areas like doorknobs fairly regularly. I was pretty much never sick until I had a toddler who went to daycare, haha. But implementing more frequent hand washing definitely helped. This might be controversial to some, but I also get a yearly flu shot. Story 35. I don't do anything to avoid sickness. I go out often, most of the time in places where it's densely populated like shopping malls and bars. I also don't wear masks or avoid touching things. My immune system is generally quite strong. I was the last in my family to get COVID back then, even after sharing food, accidentally, with some of them. I only got it after sleeping on the same bed as my mom who had it. I also don't think of my diet much. I try to eat a variety every day, but some days my diet is just carbs, fats, and a little protein. To note, though, I wash my hands with soap regularly. I never miss a shower per day, and I shower 2, 3 times, depending on the weather and the time I am up. I hate skin contact with strangers, so I never try to get close to them even on a whim, but I also don't touch my friends or family often. Story 36. My parents absolutely pushed hygiene when we were kids, but we played in the dirt, ate food off the floor if we dropped it, depending what it was. We never used hand sanitizer. I played volleyball with a girl who always used hand sanitizer. She was always the one who got sick. For the first 10 years of my life, we rarely had junk food and lived off of veggies from our garden, local fruit, and venison. I truly believe this played a huge role in mine and my siblings' strong immunity. Story 37. I was always outside as a kid. Now, as a massage therapist, literally touching people all day, I think my immune system is just built up. I wash my hands before and after each client, disinfect surfaces, use hand sanitizer, etc. I stopped shaking people's hands. I used to work in a place where my room was across from the bathroom, and the amount of people who don't wash their hands is disgusting. I also take elderberry gummies. Story 38. Pretty much everything everyone else says here about good hygiene and good sleep and hydration and exercise, plus avoid alcohol. It really gut punches your immune system. I see a big difference in fighting off viruses between when I'm drinking and when I'm not. Also for colds, if you start getting a tickle in your throat, gargle with Listerine a few times a day until it is definitely gone. Story 39. I wash my hands constantly, and I never touch public door handles or things like shopping carts with bare hands. I use my shirt or sleeve when I open doors. Stores supply wipes for shopping carts, so I use those. I tend to social distance even still just because I've gotten used to it, so it's natural to give people space for me. I also don't have kids, which are little disease factories when they are in school or daycare. Guys at work with kids are constantly sick. Story 40. Work in medical, become invincible, work out especially cardio, eat balanced diet. Water and fiber honestly is heavily ignored from what I've seen people do, leads to terrible bowel movements. And this is just a note, but try finding time to introspect, let out negative emotions, and let the burden of life fall for just a little bit. Stress kills just as much as any virus. Story 41. Eat healthy, sleep well, work out regularly, cardio, never stop moving, eat foods with fresh garlic and eat citrus, vitamin C fruits regularly when feeling down. Most importantly, limit alcohol use and smoking. It limits your immune system power. Using these methods, I've beaten COVID and flu 3 times. Everyone around me gets sick, and I don't. Haven't taken a sick day in 5 years. Story 42. I'm going to go against the majority here. I get sick, flu, cold, etc. maybe once every 3, 4 years. I guess my secret is I only wash my hands when necessary. By necessary, I mean usually only before I eat, if I'm eating with my hands, and when I use the toilet. I'm always touching stuff at work, at home, my face, other people, etc. And I just don't get sick. Even during the pandemic, I didn't catch COVID once, or if I did, I had absolutely no symptoms. And I was around people at times with COVID. The people I know who get sick the most religiously use hand sanitizer, constantly washing their hands. I'm under the firm belief that constant disinfecting makes your immune system weak. Obviously, for certain things like disease, it's needed, but for colds or flus, people aren't building up their immune response. I haven't had a flu shot in over 10 years. Sure, I've had the flu in that time, but only twice. Plus, I ate a ton of sand as a kid, so that's probably it too. Story 43. The people I know that have children are sick all the time. Friends, co-workers, all the time. So I'd say I never get sick by not having children. Washing my hands properly. Using sanitizer when washing isn't an option, but well aware that sanitizer doesn't kill norovirus, and I stay away from people. I'm not really a people person anyway, so it works out fine for me. I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. Even if communicable illness disease wasn't a thing, I'm still not trying to be around people. Story 44. I rarely fall sick and been this way since I was a kid. My mother was very much into hand washing and always had a purse full of hand wipes when I was a kid. We rarely ate out or at others. Sharing drinking or eating utensils forbidden even with siblings, a bedtime, a diet high in fruit and veggies. I'd never had or heard of caramel popcorn until 8th grade. Regular bathing, no shoes in house. I never went to daycare BC. My mother said those places are incubators of colds and ear infections. I kept good habits into adulthood and will avoid sick people like the plague. My roommate was so insulted when she had a cold and I sprayed and wiped common area with Lysol. Maybe just good genetics factors in a bit. Story 45. I exposed myself to germs regularly. As a child, I was in a scout group. We were told that dirt is healthy and cleans our stomach. So we ate food even if it fell in the mud. During the pandemic, I worked as emergency caretaker with lots of children. Never got sick. I take public transports every day for about 2 hours. I go to university, etc. I only got sick one time during the last 7 years. That was COVID. I just think my immune system is pretty well trained, and I'm extremely grateful for it. Story 46. I just live normally. If someone is obviously sick, I'll generally try and keep my distance. But other than that, just live. You need a strong immune system, and isolation isn't going to build that. My girlfriend avoids everyone during cold flu season and always ends up sick anyway, usually for quite a long time. This year it was about 18 days she was down for. I didn't catch the cold when she had it, although we lived together and sleep in the same bed. When I finally did catch a cold a few weeks after she recovered, I was down for 3 days. It was likely a different cold than she had, but who knows? But I don't mind being dirty. I work outside with my hands, garden, raise, and slaughter animals. Although I wash my hands frequently, I'm not obsessive about it. I feel like not being afraid of germs has helped me build a strong immune system for when one of those little buggers does get a foothold. One of the healthiest people I've ever met in my life was a septic pumper. He was often interacting with literal human, only washed his hands at the end of the day, and I watched him drop a pump hose into a full tank, then eat a sandwich. He said he hadn't been sick since he was a little kid, and he was in his mid to late 50s. Story 47. I don't have time to be sick. I get knocked out sick and need to miss a day or two every few years, but I just live with the mentality that I don't have time for it. If I did legitimately have time for it, I'd allow myself to be weak. If I even sense a sniffle, we are hitting it hard with the Mucinex DM. Usually I'll just take 5 oil of oregano capsules a few times a day if I'm really starting to feel something. That usually shakes it. Story 48. I have no idea. I so rarely get sick and haven't had so much as a cold in over a year now, and my household have been sick all around me all year. It was also one of the most stressful years of my life by far. I am also over 50, overweight, and have a sit-on-my-ass job. I have been doing morning boot camp style fitness pretty steadily about 3 days a week. Maybe that's it. I also work from home, and when I'm too run down, I will grab a nap at lunch. I actually wish I could get sick. I find it's the only time I can truly relax and take some downtime. Story 49, apparently good genes. My dad also rarely gets sick, and when I do get sick, it's usually less severe than the people who gave it to me had. Still haven't caught COVID even though my husband got it twice in 1 year, and the kiddo caught it at the same time. Hubby and kid caught it on our cruise, and we were all in the same cabin on the cruise and sat next to each other on our plane rides back home. We all felt kind of bad for a day or two on the cruise. To me, it felt like normal sinus drainage from the weather changing since we were cruising Alaska. Didn't think anything about it. They felt like they had colds. We got home, and within a day, the kid was running a high fever and tested, and the results were immediately positive. Hubby and I both tested because we assumed we both also had it. He came up positive. I came up negative. I wore a mask to work and stayed away from coworkers just in case. Tested 2 more times while family was still sick and negative both times. I think they caught it when they went swimming in the pool on the cruise. I didn't go with them, but the fact I didn't catch it spendy 3 days in a small cabin with them and 2 plane rides back home just amazes me, although all 3 of us wore masks on the plane. Story 50. I rarely get sick, less than once a year. I honestly don't remember the last time I was sick with something since the pandemic, and I chalk it up to a few things. I don't have kids. I leave my house pretty much only for work and errands, and my errands are infrequent and quick. I don't usually drink alcohol outside of my home or a friend's home on the rare occasion I go, so no bars or clubs. I wash my hands frequently, usually once an hour, and always after using the restroom. And I use a nasal rinse daily. A few weeks ago, I thought I felt like I was getting a tickle in my throat, so I used my nasal rinse 3 times. I usually use it once in the morning, and by the next day I felt fine. I can't say for sure I would have gotten sick if I hadn't done the rinse, but I do know I felt that tickle before and have been sick by the next day. Story 51. It sounds cliche, but just make healthy choices. I work from home but go to the gym daily. I wash my hands before I go, and I wipe down each bench/machine before and after use with the wipes the gym provides. I immediately take a shower when I get home. I wash my hands in general as I should. It's disturbing, after COVID especially, how many people I see in public bathrooms that don't wash their hands. My wife is a high school teacher, so I don't know if high schoolers are less germy or more likely to stay home when sick, but she rarely gets sick. She also goes to the gym daily and gets plenty of sleep. We both have never had COVID. We were just exposed to friends with the flu at a Super Bowl party, and we are still good. I can't remember being sick in the last 10 years, if not more. Last time I recall being actually sick with a fever was like 2011, I believe. Having no kids help. Our friends who have 2 kids have had COVID, flu, hand, foot, mouth disease, RSV, and pneumonia within the last year. Story 52, tequila. Viruses can't live in my body if my body is a toxic wasteland. Since 2018, I've had pneumonia and COVID-2X, and that's it. And to be fair, during COVID, I had to work in super close proximity of a lot of people. So take it with a grain of salt, LOL. Haven't had a flu shot since 2012 and haven't had the flu since. I've had some minor bugs but haven't thrown up from being sick or been bedridden or had to call out of work. 4 kids, 2 are school age. 2 actually have strep throat right now, lol. But yeah, tequila. Story 53. I'm clean, but I don't shy away from introducing my immune system to new pathogens. I hike a lot, work in office, people are disgusting, exercise at Planet Fitness, EW, but I always make sure to wash my hands, sanitize things often, eat healthy, blah, blah, blah. I also take supplements regularly. My current stack is zinc, oil of oregano, elderberry, vitamin D, vitamin K, vitamin A, magnesium, iron, and B12 or AB complex. Story 54. So since COVID began, I've been sick once, with COVID in 2024. I'm around kids who get colds constantly. I've been around people with COVID and I didn't get it. And I don't take lots of steps to ensure I don't get sick. There are a few things that I think help me. First, I eat 3 meals a day with protein. I get sufficient sleep for my body, 6 to 7 hours, but yours may differ. I exercise, not insanely often, but like I do a lot of hikes, I walk my dog a lot, and I golf. One of my conspiracy theories is that my college dorm rooms were legit disgusting, shout out East Halls at Penn State, and I got sick constantly my freshman year. I genuinely think I got exposed to so many variants of the common cold that I tend to not get it as much. Story 55. It's difficult to really say, but my guess is I was allowed to be sick as a kid and teenager. My dad wasn't a big clean freak, and he didn't really avoid places where sick people might be, big gatherings, etc. If we got a sinus infection, ear infection, or the like, and it wasn't causing serious problems, he just let me and my brother fight it off on our own. As adults, my brother and I rarely get sick. It could be related to our dad's non-intervention illness philosophy, and it may just be genetic, as my dad never got sick much either. My husband manages to pick up everything, but even if I catch it from him or pick up a bug from our toddler, my symptoms are always far more mild than his and last half as long. Story 56. Don't eat that dish of leftovers that's been sitting in the back of the fridge too long. Give yourself permission to throw it out. Yes, food waste is a problem, but there comes a point where you just have to throw it out. Only eat food you know for sure is still fresh. When in doubt, throw it out. Also, wash your hands and utensils frequently while cooking. Are you using the same knife you just used to slice chicken breast to cut fresh veggies? Stop that. Wash it and your hands. So many people seem to get sick frequently because they eat dubious food and don't realize they're constantly exposing themselves to foodborne pathogens. Story 57. Not really sure. I don't drink alcohol anymore. I work outside with a crew and am almost never in an office setting. I have a physical job and I don't go to gyms. I'm kind of fat. Some people might say big-boned, but I take my vitamins every morning. It's weird. My wife takes very good care of herself and she gets colds and aches and pains. I don't think it's anything special that I'm doing. It may be genetic, but hey, I'm a ditch digger, not a science man. Story 58. Tea, hot or iced. I've drank tea, water, or fruit juice my whole life. Never liked soda. I rarely get sick. When I feel a little sluggish or that I've caught something, I drink 4 or 5 glasses of hot tea a day, specific to symptoms, and my cold doesn't get any worse than feeling sleepy. People in my life expect to hear me say, drink some tea, if they aren't feeling good. I am Uncle Eero IRL. Story 59. I don't know what my deal is. In my adult life, I've never received the flu vaccine, never did COVID vaccine. I don't recall the last time I've had the flu, and I got COVID once. Very mild allergy symptoms, runny nose. I live with 4 others in the house and have been surrounded by sick people, on many occasions with everyone else in the house getting sick from each other. I work and interact with lots of people throughout my day, work and social. I don't necessarily take extra precautions when around sick people, only wore a mask when required. Story 60. Don't want to jinx myself, obviously, but I have rarely been poorly behind the odd cold in my life. I'm not especially careful. Don't avoid being outside, etc. Though I don't really like busy places like nightclubs, etc., so by default, maybe that helps. I am a normal to below normal level of hygienic. I wash my hands after using a bathroom, but not really after using public transport or whatever. I let my dog sleep in the bed, etc. I put it down to luck, genetics, strong immune system, or a combination of things. I'm not doing anything deliberately to avoid it beyond normal measures like not kissing sick people or eating food from the floor. Someone once told me blood type might have something to do with it, but IDK. But I don't think there's been studies that show any definitive link to that being more or less hardy against illness. Story 61. We wash our hands a lot. Every time we leave and engage with public areas, we sanitize when we get into the car, and then wash hands as soon as we get home. If we experience sick people in public, we take showers and put our clothes in the wash. Well, I have OCD, as I'm sure you can tell, but we rarely get sick. We are currently sick for the first time in years, all because my husband's entire work team was sick last week. So it was hard to avoid this time. Story 62, there's lots of good advice here, but I think a decent chunk of it is just luck and genetics. My wife and I both do the same stuff. Health-wise flu and COVID shots, rarely around people. Wash our hands quite a bit, etc. But when we do go out and are around people, she is far more likely to get sick and stay sick longer than me. Most of my family is the same way in that we rarely got sick. The one difference between her and me that's been mentioned is that I sleep more and better than her in general. My parents growing up always pushed getting a lot of sleep, so all of my family is that way. Maybe it truly is that simple. Story 63. I think a lot of it is general health. I have a small suspicion that gut microbiome might play a big role too. I work out often, eat vegetarian, and as a kid played around in the dirt a lot. I got COVID and flu shots this year. I don't drink more than 1 or 2 drinks a year, and don't really eat sugar or ultra-processed foods. I take zinc, magnesium, vitamin D, iron, and vitamin B. I have a kid who started daycare this year. Somehow I managed to only get sick twice, 2 light cold days each time. My husband and the rest of my family who were around my daughter have gotten the flu, RSV, 4 colds, pneumonia, and COVID. 5 people all had the flu at the same time over Thanksgiving, and my daughter was coughing on me while she had it, and somehow I never got it. One other thing I think might help is keeping your neck warm when you're outside. Cold and dry air can irritate your throat, making it easier to get sick. Source Eccles R. 2002, paper listed on PubMed. Story 64. I sleep at least 6-7 hours every night. I pretty much only drink water or coffee. I don't touch my face unless I'm washing it. I wash my hands before I eat or when I come home from anywhere. Before I touch anything in my house, I regularly use disinfectant wipes on surfaces such as the microwave buttons, refrigerator handle, doorknobs, light switches, etc. I don't eat a lot of fast food and do mostly a clean diet, but not vegan, and work out 5-6 times a week. I've only been sick once in the last 3 years since I focused on those changes, and it was just a little 3-day cold. Story 65, genetics is the only valid response. Before COVID, I was never sick. I was super unhygienic. I bit my nails every day until I was about 24. I eat my boogers. I showered as a kid twice a week, never washed hands before eating, etc., and especially not with soap. And don't really mind touching everywhere in my body and mouth. I pick my ears and eyes. I used to not really care as my house clean. Don't eat so healthily. Usually my veggie and fruit intake is like 1 banana a day. I had a 3-year bout with gym, but outside that I didn't exercise. Wasn't fat though due to not being young and not eating large quantities. I store my clothes on the floor. I did not take a single day off during my entire 16-27 work-study career. After that I got food poisoning once. I was about 31 when I got COVID the first time. Since then, I've been sick every now and then. Story 66. Couple of things. Nutrition is a big one. I struggled with anorexia when I was in high school and caught stuff really easily. I even got whooping cough from a baby. But even when I got better, I was still getting sick constantly. I later found that my tonsils were to blame. I was getting regularly ill for years, at least 5-6 viral infections that would turn into secondary infections, like bronchitis, pneumonia, sinus infections. After getting my tonsils removed over a year ago, I have only been sick once, and it was COVID. Story 67. I think it depends on our constitution. For example, my body is perpetually cold internally. I have a big problem with this as I've OA, but I almost never get a cold and flu. So I can't imagine how it would be for a person susceptible to illness. Some things you can't control, but you can eat well, wrap up in warm weather. Something PPL are really bad at doing. I'm talking thermal coat, inner tops and leggings and socks in winter, and even lighter thermal in early spring. It's so important to keep the body warm. Get sleep. Exercise is great to keep the body healthy. Don't drink and smoke. Take a good multivitamin maybe. Many are shite, so look for a good branded one. Get bloods done at least once a year. Tip, ask for the actual results. If something is in range but not high in range, then it's likely you need more of that. Doctors don't know enough about blood work really, so it's worth doing a bit of research on this yourself. If you take vitamin D3, then magnesium is essential. We need magnesium for everything in the body. Getting sick occasionally is not a bad thing either. The body needs to fight off infections safely.